Good morning, everybody, and it's great to be here and to be telling you about my Canada Council application. I would say it comes down to probably three things. One, I had a well-developed manuscript. I had worked through a second draft, so I was on the second draft of a complete manuscript. I called it Zarland Dream, Living an Intercultural Experience. It's about the year that I spent with my family in Germany, Saarland, Germany, from July 2013 to June 2014. So I felt it was a unique experience as a Black woman who's of immigrant roots in Canada, who's lived in different parts of Canada. Beginning in 1986, I moved to Canada. But also having that experience to put off a year of work, deferred leave, and to go with my teenage daughter and my husband, who was on sabbatical, to live in Germany. So I kept some notes about that experience, and I worked on it afterward. I'd say that really I started seriously working on it after I retired in 2018. So by the time I joined Evergreen in 2021, April of 2021, I had a full draft. And, my inexperience and everything, so, I was overwriting and doing all sorts of things, but I did have a serious piece of writing done. The second thing was encouragement. So I would never have applied for this if I hadn't had a mentorship with the Writers Federation. And it was really the talk that they did with taking care of business, where they covered things like, querying a publisher, querying an agent, applying for grants. And it was at the applying for grants that I said, oh, I might just be able to do this. And this was February 2021. So I had joined up the Writers Federation, and I figured, okay, yeah, I'll take this in. They were offering the course for $150 or something like that. But then to members, they were offering it for $49. I considered that $49 my best investment ever for doing that. And other people also, for the first time, thought, oh, I can apply for that. I remember the Writers Federation person who was coordinating the talks. He said, oh, I can apply for this. I said, certainly. But I had already asked an experienced woman who had worked for Formac, but she retired. I had said to her long before, do you think I could get a Canada grant for this? She said, of course. But I went to the Canada Council website, and I was totally confused. I didn't know how to navigate it, and so I just set it aside. I just realized that some of the criteria that they were asking for a literary work, I didn't fit in, and it just didn't. I had been a teacher for 30 years. I'd not had anything really published. I had worked on writing as a hobby, and I just didn't fit the literary criteria. So I set that aside, and that was a year before I actually did the application. So when you go to the Canada Council website and you look at the first page, it shows you steps. So step 1 is create an account. Step 2 is profile validation. And these are steps towards acquiring a grant. So the granting process involves 6 steps. Step 1, create an account. Step 2, profile validation. And they advise you that if you're going to apply, at least 30 days before, you should put in your profile to be validated so that you don't end up in a big rush. Give the process some time. Step 3 is applying to programs. So then you have to figure out which program do you actually best fits your profile, right? And that was where I was confused when I thought about it the first time. Step 4 is application assessment. And step 5, notification of results. And then the final step is reporting on the grant. So I decided to take these courses from Writers Federation, and I was encouraged to do that by the people who presented. So there was a lady from a program officer from presenting in Taking Care of Business, and she went through the whole research process of how you go about presenting. And they encourage people to ask questions. So you can go onto the Canada Council website and fire questions off the program officers if you're confused about something. And they are pretty good in getting back to you. I didn't have a lot of questions. I just wanted to figure out myself how to do things, and then do the steps and let them respond to me with their validation and their assessment and all that kind of thing. So I never really sent them a whole bunch of questions, but I did listen very carefully to what they had to say for the presentation. And some of the things that they talked about had, well, in addition to someone, the program officer from Canada Council, there was also people who had applied successfully as writers. So one is from Nova Scotia, and I forget the name right now, but she's a writer, and she's a published writer. And she went through the process of what to do, how to go about it. She said, first of all, don't be intimidated by the online website instructions and all the stuff that's on the Canada Council. Download the program that you're wanting to apply to, all the information about it, and read it thoroughly. When you're preparing your application, there's some big chunks in there where they ask you to describe your project and what is your artistic vision and things of that nature. Prepare those separately, like a Word document. Prepare it, formulate it, revise it, whatever, before you go into the actual application to cut and paste it in online, because this is all online that you're going to submit your application eventually. So give yourself time to prepare the writing and to revise it, perfect it before you actually put it in the application online. Now, the application online, you can also put it in online and save it as you go without submitting. So if you're comfortable that you can do it that way, but I prepared my documents ahead of time in Word, in Microsoft Word, and then cut and paste them in, especially the big chunks. So I applied under the Explore and Create Research and Creation program. And I did that as a new early career artist. Now that's timing. That's the third component of what I think was really important for me, that the government had put in additional monies apparently for this. And this was a pilot program that they were running, the new early career artist. And apparently you can only have one of these at a time. You can only do this once. So if I was thinking about doing something again next year, I wouldn't be able to qualify for that. So the new early career artist profile is for artists who are entering or who are in the early stages of their professional career in one or more fields of practice recognized by the Canada Council. So they welcome, this profile also welcomes artists who are new to Canada and may have received training or begun a career in their country of origin. So that was available to me, and the criteria to be eligible as new early artist, you must be at least 18 years old, be a Canadian citizen or a permanent resident, not have an approved application profile with the Canada Council, not have previously received a grant from the Canada Council, and have some training, experience, or accomplishment in one or more of the following fields of practice. And that includes dance, circus arts, digital arts, literature, right? So I highlighted the literature and I said, oh, I might be able to do something with this. And so I did. So then I looked closely at the Explore and Create research and creation overview. I printed that off and I had a good look at it. And, as to who's eligible, what does it involve? What do I need to do to apply? And what are they actually looking for? Now, on the Writers Federation presentation, Taking Care of Business, the program officer stressed the assessment process. How are decisions made? Because, okay, so I'm a new early artist, but they still have to look at my, what I'm actually doing, the merit of what I'm doing, and so on. So she emphasized that the application on the research and creation, Explore and Create, would look at three different aspects for assessment. Artistic merit was going to be worth 50%. The impact was going to be worth 30%, and feasibility 20%. And artistic merit, they meant the artist's quality of work, the artist's rationale for the project, and the potential artistic outcomes. The impact, 30%, was the potential of the project to contribute to my own or group's artistic development and advance artistic practice. And then the feasibility part, the capacity and experience to undertake the project, and a reasonable budget, including the ability to provide adequate working conditions. Now, these are set up for groups as well, as most of you would know. So let's say Evergreen Writers could propose something to Canada Council as a group with a leader, someone who takes the lead, and then the group would be looking at funding towards publication of work or works, right? So I was doing this as an individual. So there's that aspect, which totally makes it much less complicated to do, because of course, the more involvement of people, the more people you have involved in the process, of course, the more effort and time it takes to get to the point, the end. That was probably the hardest part of it, to come up with this artistic vision that they're asking about, and advancing my artistic vision, the contribution of my artistic work, because this is all new to me. And I've never really thought about, I just thought of writing a memoir. I didn't think about how it's going to advance a particular artistic vision. But a little bit of creativity, reflection, sort of bullshitting maybe gets you there. So I worked on that quite a bit, trying my best, looking at what is a memoir? What does it actually do? What am I hoping to get out of it artistically? Like, it's not just writing something down, it's what's the creative aspects of it. So I had to really delve into that a little bit longer and harder. And that was the hardest part for me. In terms of, again, going back to the Writers Federation presentation, one lady who was a published writer, she said, the absolute key to your application is the selection of your sample. So you have to include in your application 20-page, if you're right, what you're doing, what I was doing a memoir, no more than 20 pages of a sample from my work. So she said that's key. You be very, very careful and selective about the samples that you include. Make sure it's the best piece that you can produce or you submit. And that's going to be key because you're actually applying, your assessment is going to be made by a group of writers or artists, and they're interested in the creativity and the quality of your work and so on. So she said, make sure that that's in there. So that's what I did. So eventually I got around to completing online the grant application. And so I was explore and create, research and creation. My application name was Starland Dream, Living an Intercultural Experience. And literature, new early career artists. And then the deadline was apply anytime. It seems like they have a continuous intake. Some of the programs have deadlines, but in this particular case, it was apply anytime. And once your application has been submitted, it's a 6-month wait. So I applied in March of 2021. And I got 4 months later, I got a notification. Well, first of all, I got validation that my profile had been approved. And that's really just to say that, yeah, you're not under 18, you're a Canadian citizen and all that kind of thing. But so that took a few weeks. And then after that, sometime later, I got a notification of assessment and decision pending. And then at the end of August, I got the notification that the grant had been approved for $25,000. Now that's a nice chunk. They will, if you're working on something that's longer term, they will fund you up to 50,000, but they said most of what they provide under this program is about $25,000. So I asked for, my budget was very simple, and that was the other thing. You were encouraged to apply, but keep the budget simple as you can keep it. So I basically just asked for living expenses over a year, and that's what it amounted to, 25,000. And I didn't go into a lot of other things like, they can provide you funding for babysitting and maybe travel support and that kind of thing, but I didn't ask for any of that. I just asked for the living expenses, which is a $2,000 per month over the year, and it amounts to 25. And they provide you with some kind of Excel spreadsheet, put that in, upload it to your application and send it off along with your sample of your work and what have you. So that part of it was pretty simple. And we were encouraged not to make it too complicated. Now, if you're working with groups or if you're publishing house and all these other things, that budget is going to be more complicated and so on. But then, of course, the whole process is going to be complicated because you have to provide proof that you're actually working with people, who their names are, what the contact information is, and all of that. So in my case, as being an individual, applying for this, it was pretty straightforward at that point. So there are things that you're asked to do. So obviously the name of your project, the description of your project, describe the project, explain the inspiration for your project or why you wish to undertake it at this time in approximately 750 words. So that took some doing. And another part, outline your project plan, including your timeline in approximately 250. So I suggested that I would start for the portion that the Canada Council will support. I would be doing this over the period from May or June 2022 to June of 2023. So that's my date. And those dates come up again because they want to know when they supply the grant, whether or not your dates have changed significantly. And you need, which is due 3 months after your supposedly end date. So it will be November of 2023 for me. In that report, final report, they'd like to know whether or not, you've kept your dates and whether you have completed what you're suggesting that you will do. By the time I applied to Canada Council, I had finished the developmental editing with Cooper Lee Bombardier, which brought me to the end of a third draft. I'm working through draft 4 right now. And the grant has allowed me the freedom, some financial freedom. So I hired an editor. I don't know if any of you know Marianne Ward. I'm working with Marianne Ward right now. And I got back from her a couple months ago, 22 pages of revisions. It was very hard to get started on that. In fact, I took the summer off after I was finished with Cooper Lee, and that finished in May, when we had the reading at the library in 2021, right? 2022. Yeah, this year only. It feels like longer than that. Yeah, when I was finished with Cooper, I had a third draft finished. And then I said, okay, well, I've worked on this. I need to get some outside professional sort of assessment. And I met Marianne Ward through the Writers Federation presentations when they were talking about editing process. I was part of taking care of business. And I wrote to her after and said, I'm doing this work. Would you be interested in working with me? And she said, yes. And she provided me with a support letter. I didn't need a support letter for Canada Council, but she did support what I was doing in writing as well. And after that, I said, well, okay, I took the summer off. And then in the fall, I went back to the work. And I said to her, I sent a letter, would you be interested in giving me a frank and honest appraisal of my work? And she said yes. She charged me $1,000 for that, which I think she undercharged me because it's 152,000 words. So she has asked me significantly to cut down, pare down that memoir, which is ruthless. Like, I mean, no holds barred, So that's what I'm working on right now. And after I'm finished this fourth draft, I will present that to her, and she's willing to work with me in the new year to do draft 5. So when I was doing the Writers Federation thing, I took a course in writing for young children. And the author said, she's also a published writer. And she said, I normally go through 8 drafts of something before I get it to the publishing stage. So I'm sort of reality. I'm in more of a real world now than when I started out. And she said, never send your first draft of anything out. So I'm at that stage now where, I'm into it. I want to finish it, but I'm not in a hurry. I just want to work at it steadily when I can and get it finished. Okay, so I'm open to questions at this point.
I have one.
Might have talked too long.
I have one, if that's okay, Claudette.
Okay, great.
So did you say that you did the profile first and then the profile tells you what grants are open to you? Did I get that right, or did I misunderstand?
I found out which one I could apply for through the Writers Federation presentations on taking care of business. I realized that I couldn't go into the literary writer section, that it just didn't apply to me at this point because I had no published work. I was not, and they emphasize professional practice. And I'm not a professional writer. So I'm more like, I consider myself novice. I'll get to the point if I get published where and professional can involve getting paid for what you're doing, right? So that was never my professional practice. So once you do you have to be very sure on that. And if you're a published writer, you probably should go to the literary writer section if you have any published work. And if you're unsure about that, which category you fall into, you should send, when you go into the writers, the Canada Council website, send an email off to a program officer. If you're unsure, they'll get back to you and clear up all that.
Okay, that's great, because I do have 2 books published, but I don't have a literary novel published, which is what I write now.
Oh, okay. Yes. So it would be helpful to get some feedback on that too.
Okay, thank you.
Serendina has a question.
Okay,
Claudette,
what made you decide to live in Saarland for a year?
Why did I live in Saarland for a year? That's good.
Saarland.
Saarland, yeah, in West Germany. Yeah, my husband is German, and he had lived in he's a northern German, from up by Eutin and the North Sea and that kind of thing. And he had gone to university in central Germany, in Göttingen, he pronounced it, central Germany. But he had friends and associates from his university days who lived in Germany, who lived in Saarland and were working in the forest industry or forest sector in Germany. So he had connections. And so it would not have been my first choice, really. I would have preferred a bigger city, more action, activity. But, it's Germany, so you can get anywhere you want to in Germany. Very, very central to a lot of places and surrounding countries here. Also, because our daughter was with us, my husband had proposed that she go into a French school. So even though we lived in Germany, my daughter went to school in France. She crossed the border every day by tram, by commuter train, to attend a French school. She was in grade 10. So that was.
Then.
Pardon me?
That would have been in the Alsace then?
In the Alsace.
Lorraine.
Alsace-Lorraine.
Yes, area.
Spend a lot of time.
Claudette, I have a question. You talked about the 3 things that you have to prepare for your grant. I can't remember the titles right offhand. I'll watch the video again that's been recorded about you. But you said there's one piece there that you had to write, I think it's 750 words to describe your artistic vision, the one you struggled with. How did you respond to that?
Okay, so
you're writing a memoir, and I'm thinking even about myself. How do you answer a question like that? I mean, you want to impress them, but you don't want to tell the whole truth. Like, I don't know.
Yeah. So I think they might realize that a new artist, developing person would struggle a little bit, so they might not be too harsh with me at that point. But really, I described what I was doing, and I sort of summarized what I put in a summary of what the memoir was going to be about. But also, I indicated that it was it's a literary depiction of a life in a foreign country, where my husband is reacquainting himself with German homeland and culture, but I'm trying to make a way for myself in a meaningful way in a new environment with a foreign language. But also the structure of the memoir, I include elements that it was sort of unique to me. So my immigrant experience, for example, coming from Barbados, as a student, living in various parts of Canada, New Brunswick, British Columbia, and then Saskatchewan, and now here. And also it includes flashbacks of my Barbadian life. So there's that use of techniques that encourages someone to find out a life. What was this life of this woman like, and how is she coping with it? But also interwoven in a way that I would hope helps the interest of readers. And also some of the idea, what is it like really for someone to navigate a foreign country for a year in a situation where, you know, my daughter didn't really want to come with us. She missed her friends, and all the uncertainties and teenage anxieties crowded in. So, but pulling all of this together at a personal level, but also socially, a lot was happening in Europe at the time and in Germany. There were some economic things that were happening in Greece, Italy, and so on. So there were a lot of European youth and people flooding into Germany at the time. So when I attended my language classes, for example, I took 5 months to go to attend language classes. I met a lot of these people, and it was very stimulating and interesting to meet them and to describe all of that. So it helps to open people's eyes as to what was going on in Europe at the time. But at another level, it's about a personal story that I hope to weave together in a way that will interest readers.
I have a quick question, if that's okay.
Mhm.
This question is actually from a different area than you applied for, but because of the presentation, you might be able to give an answer for it. I'm looking into maybe applying for a program that's probably in the spring. I haven't really looked exactly yet. I need to have funding to live because it's not where I am, but it is yeah. Can you apply for funding to go to a program? Kind of, I guess it would be like an internship. It's women in the director's chair is what I'm looking at. And can you apply for something that you haven't been accepted to? Because I don't know when their application is
Mhm.
being done. But
Yeah.
you say there's 6 months wait. So do you know anything about that?
Well, I find that tricky. That part of it is tricky because you're going to apply for something ahead of time without knowing whether you're going to get the funding to cover it. But there is a program where they support professional development for artists, and
Yeah.
that's outside of the grant for living experience, the living expenses to do
Right.
writing or to do whatever you're.
Yeah. I took a look at the website and I saw that there was like 4 different tiers, and the
Mhm.
one I'm asking about isn't the tier that you were in. So I was just
Right.
kind of curious if you knew, like, if there is like a program that you want to go into, but you can't apply for it yet, but because of the 6 months usually, just in general, do you know if you can apply for a funding if you get in?
Yeah, when I think what they ask for is when you apply for what they call a professional development funding for membership. They could be for mentorships, workshops, things of that nature, internships. You have to provide proof that you are in that program or
Okay.
in that workshop or you've been accepted by it. So it's tricky time-wise because like you say, you wait for 6 months to get the funding back and you're not sure whether you're actually going to get it. So, and that's up to $10,000 that they provide for that kind of professional development for artists. So I think you have to provide proof that you are going to be in that program. They ask for a snapshot of a picture or something that provides, yes, you've been accepted into a workshop or a PD session.
Okay.
I don't see how you can actually get over that. You kind of have to have money to do it, but you need the money that you're not sure that you're getting.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Claudette, what are you expected to have completed by the end of the year for which the grant money applies? Do they expect you to have the novel finished?
No, I don't think they do, and it won't be finished. They expect you to report on what you've completed, and I will be able to say, well, I've completed draft 5. The report that they supply here asks for your start date, your end date, a short description of the project and the activities that you undertook with the assistance of your grant from the council in approximately 250 words. And then summarize the key achievements of your project and challenges, if any, in another 250 words. So basically report on what you've been doing and what you've accomplished, what you've managed to successfully get done over the year.
When you applied for the grant, they asked you for a start date for your project. Now, again, that's tricky because if it's 6 months to getting the funding, I guess you just pick an arbitrary date 6 months into the future from the time you submit the application, right? Because you don't want to be disqualified because you picked the wrong month.
Yeah, they do give you a little bit of flexibility in that you can change your dates once you accept the grant. I mean, it's life, things happen, there are delays, there are challenges. I did say June of 2022 to June of 2023 would be my sort of start end dates. And I still think that I can reach those dates, but I mean, if they move by a month or two, I don't think that's going to be very, very critical. It's if you've got nothing done for the whole year or half a year, then you might be beginning to look at changing some of those dates. But yes, it's a little bit of a guesswork because if like I'm asking someone else to be involved in editing the work, I don't know if her availability is going to line up with when I would like to work with her. She's got projects and different things going on, so she may not be available for 3 months or something. So I think basically I'm going, if it happens that way, just explain what happens and maybe get some feedback from program officers if I think it's a real problem. But I think I'm still on, I can still make the November sort of, okay, so end of June 2023, I can still get there in terms of the draft that I'd like to have completed.
Yeah, because they give you a 3-month grace period after the end of the year, right? To submit the
Yes.
report? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it said November 23. Yeah.
So which courses from Writers Federation did you consider most helpful?
The one that I found most helpful?
Yeah.
Okay, so I found that taking care of business, and I think they're running it right now. I looked at their newsletter briefly that they sent out, and they said they were going to be running it again. It came up in February, March of 2022. So just have a look at their newsletter. Okay.
Just the one course?
Taking care of business, I think it had 4 components.
Oh, yeah.
And they're trying to, for people who were writing and thinking about how are they going to move forward with their work. So one segment was querying an agent. So they do the querying letter. They actually have agents, for people who work for Nimbus, who have a lot of experience doing that presentation. So it said, this is what your letter will look like. This is what it shouldn't include. These are the, the do's and don'ts of querying an agent. And then publisher, working with the publisher. So if you were interested in supplying, interested in working with Nimbus, what should you do? How should you go about it? And then another aspect of was applying for grants. And that was the one that really was helpful to me for this particular application. Mhm.
Are these all offered via Zoom?
They were offered by Zoom during that period, and I think they still are. I think Zoom, because it's so useful for people who are out of town,
Yeah.
across the province. It's groups like Writers Federation, they're probably going to keep up a lot of the Zoom presentations for members. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Hi, Claudette. I have another question, if that's okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm just on the website right now, and I'm trying to find a new early career artist grant, and I don't see that. And you're right, it is quite a confusing website, and it is kind of overwhelming. Is there somewhere on the website itself where it talks about the new early career profile or the new early artist? Is it a particular grant, the new early career artist grant?
It was a particular grant, and that's where I say timing. Timing may have been on my side. Now,
okay.
they said the new early career profile is a pilot program that will be in place for 2-year trial period until March 31st, 2021. I applied in March.
Okay, so it doesn't so that particular grant doesn't exist anymore.
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
I can only do it once. But what I would do is I would send an email to the program officer.
Okay, and that would be the program officer for the Explore and Create,
Yes.
is that right?
Yes.
Okay, good, thank you.
Joe, to answer your question, I was just on that website yesterday preparing my questions for Claudette, and there is something called research and what was it called, Claudette?
Creation.
And creation. If you go on and you click on that link, you can get an application form, and it describes pretty much what Claudette has said were the requirements for the application. It's not called early artist or whatever. It's research and
Creation.
and creation.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, that's helpful.
It's not easy to navigate that site. Like if you're looking by category, it just it goes by program, and you don't know what program you fit into. That's the problem.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah.
But for us, it's probably going to be research and creation, I guess. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Because it shows in there that there's a maximum of $25,000 that they will give you. Right, and you can reapply for a second up to 50,000. But I think you have to. It's 1 year later or something. I stopped reading after that.
Thank you.
You have to explore yourself and your creative powers. Do you have to be a published author?
No. Yeah, a not published author, unless you're applying for that literary writer, which is a completely different thing, and the criteria for that are onerous.
You need a course just to navigate that.
Yeah, well, that's why that course that's offered through Writers Fed would be good, because they would help you understand that, right?
It sounds very practical.
It is very practical by the sound of it.
We're listening to Claudette, and it has helped her a lot.
Yeah, exactly.
Can I mention something in here? When I was on the website this morning, I noticed that people of a certain, either if you have a disability, you're a minority that has a language barrier or any of that stuff, you can apply to get assistance to create your application. I don't know I can't remember the exact things for that, but it does state, like, if you're Inuit, if you're any of those things, like if you have like a disability, if you have a language barrier, you could apply and somebody will help you assist in the application from the actual council.
Yes, that's true. So there's a lot of possibility for assistance on, and that's why I say, fire off something to the program officer if you're confused, and they do get back to you. So I would say that I was helped a lot because one, I had the mentorship through the Writers Federation, and my mentor encouraged me. He was the one who said, Claudette, you can do this. He had actually gotten funding under the same program the year before. And he sort of was prepared to walk me through the steps. So I had a true mentor there. And also the second thing was, my husband's applied at University Prof for all kinds of grants. He was not intimidated like I was by the Canada Council. So I had a big help at home as well. And he said, save but don't submit. Save but don't submit, like till you're ready to do that final submission. Don't be afraid of any of this stuff. Just let's do it carefully and steadily. So I had that kind of encouragement to do it.
I seem to be the only one with questions. Okay, so what do you write about, generally speaking?
In the memoir, you mean?
Anywhere in your writing,
It's memoir writing. is what
Oh,
she's
your
doing right
memoir
now.
writing, is that?
It's mostly a memoir, right? That I submitted. I didn't have to submit anything else beyond the sample from the memoir. And I took a chapter where I talked about my experience as a Black woman living in Zarland and what that meant. So just 20 pages of that. But, apart from that, I just do writing as a hobby and bits and pieces here and there. I'm not sure, Elizabeth, if I've answered all of your questions. Was there anything else that you thought I didn't cover? Elizabeth, you
Yes.
sent me 6 questions.
Oh, yeah, no, I think you've covered them all. I don't have access to the email at the moment. I think there were 6 questions on there, but you more or less covered all of them.
Okay.
The thing about the budget, so you just put in like one line in the Excel spreadsheet and said living expenses, 25,000, right?
Yeah,
You didn't
basically,
break it down and say, I'm going to hire an editor or, none of that.
no. And I
Yeah.
knew that I would hire an editor if I got the funds, but I didn't put that in. And
No.
when I was talking to Cooper Lee, I said, yeah, I want to go with the band. I want to do this. I want to hire an editor. I'm going to pay for it out of the living expenses if I get the fund. He said, you shouldn't have to do that. They provide programs where you can apply for a mentor and pay that, or you can pay an editor for professional development funds or something. So he was like, okay, that's your living expenses during the period that you're working on this work. And I mean, it's open to university professors. They don't look at your income when they provide you with these grants. So you could be a full-time university professor writing a book on the side and get the same funding that I got, right? So he said, why don't you, if you want to go to grant math or you want to hire an editor, why don't you look at the other programs and apply separately for what's available? But I never did. But
you can do that then. You could apply and get maybe 2 or 3 grants from them for different categories.
You can have different profiles and apply for different things in the same year, except if it's a special program like this one here, New Artists, they only allow you to have one profile there and one-time application.
Oh, interesting.
I guess not.
Thank you, Claudette.
So, yeah.
Thank you, Claudette.
Oh, you're welcome. My pleasure.
Yes, thank you very much.
Welcome. Mhm.